You have to encounter yourself over and over with generational historical storylines of mothering. So which version of the mother can you be? Do you want to be? Is allowed? Then culturally, over and over again, we block out these times that you're allowed to be enjoying it, and then you just better get the fuck on with it. Get back to work, start earning, get your body back, play either like the extreme, give everything to my children, mother, or, pretend that I didn't have anything happen to my body.
Right.
And that I don't have scars, and that I don't have stretch marks, and that I don't lose my hair in clumps at month 3 of my baby's life, or that I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Or that all I want to do is this, but I can't. And if you're in a partnership, that's also, it's so complex. Nobody knows how to do this.
This is one of those conversations where yoga meets real life. Today we're talking about prenatal yoga, but really we're talking about what it means to become a mother, the loss of control, the intensity of the body, and the ways we try to prepare for something that ultimately can't be controlled. If you listened to our recent episode on pelvic floor and sun salutations, this builds on that idea, yoga not as a set of poses, but as a way to meet complex human experiences. This isn't a how-to. It's a conversation about what it actually feels like to become a mother and how yoga can support that. So, you're Jenny Barron Fishman.
Thank you.
A pillar of the birthing community here in Chicago. You've been around for a long time. You own Sweet Peas Studio in Ravenswood, Chicago. You are a massage therapist and a birth educator and an educator of teachers to learn how to help other people serve this particular population, the perinatal population. Mm-hmm. And you also sing and perform in a band.
That's right.
And the name of the band is?
Judson, Maine.
Nice. Do you find that the pelvic floor work and the pranayama
We're
work...
going into pelvic floor now.
Do you feel like the pelvic floor work and the pranayama work of yoga help you as a singer?
Yes, and vice versa. From childhood, my mom, we just always were singing, and she was an amazing singer, and we were all in choirs and things like that. I feel like that punctuates how I understand breath and how to help people extend an exhalation.
Interesting.
And I think yoga brought in a lot of terms and physiology and, control of the breath, but I was already diaphragmatic breathing, and putting the breath in different areas of the body was a lot of work I'd already done with theater and music.
So can you ever get your prenatal or postnatal students to sing?
I do encourage a lot of vocalization.
Really? Okay, yeah.
A lot of humming, starting just with sighs, with letting a breath go, with sound, with placing it in different areas, like just noticing if you take a hum low, kind of surrounding your baby, people will just organically take the pitch lower. If you're creating sound, it is a celebratory life force, or it's a way of, like with the breath, to control the racing brain or to interrupt pain signals in that way. That one of the gate theories is that pleasure supposedly reaches the brain faster than pain.
Well, that's interesting
Sound
about this.
is,
The sound with the breath. Because certainly as I get older, lifting, like anything, like, oh my, there's just the sounds accompanying effort.
Yeah.
Quite a bit.
Yeah.
And I remember certainly my own birth and the sounds that I made and how that really helped me, but how uncomfortable that was for everyone else in the room. But it's interesting to get that into a regular yoga class, because I feel like there is kind of this inhibition to making sound. Do you have a...
Well, I do. I set a tone in my classes that is very, don't take yourself so seriously, and welcome to just playing and exploring and being curious. And it's good to kind of practice in front of strangers and feel uncomfortable and feel embarrassed. And because, as I say, you're not going to know any of the staff in a hospital birth. You're going to feel like a stranger to yourself. even though you get very intimate and very deep, you can, but it's so much sensation. It's so much of yourself all at once. And so to not edit yourself and to use the tool as it arrives. If it's, leaning forward onto somebody and hearing their breath in your ear and following that breath with a sound or whatever it is, it's going to be so primal.
Yeah.
And
do you feel like mothers who come in and it's their second, third time, like this, they're going to be I feel like this sort of, this loss of inhibition is very post-birth, right? Is opposed to like.
Sure. Well, you get to practice it more because you've already lost all sense of like trying to do something that will get you an end result. Because you've stayed up at 3 a.m. with a baby that you can't console and you don't know what to do with yourself. And you go into the darkest corners of your psyche and the lightest, probably within 2 seconds of each other. It's so intense.
I didn't think how emotional this would be.
I know. It's really intense.
I feel like with parenthood, there's that sense of like, I can't make this all right. I can't make this perfect. I can't. And it's just that it happens so much every day. It's so humbling.
Yeah. Yeah. And so coming into a practice that is designed primarily to try to insert some kind of control is problematic. For one thing, is it and it also
tell me what you mean by a practice that would be like more control oriented.
Well, all of yoga is about control, in my opinion. It was designed historically to create this kind of hierarchy of knowledge of these are these enlightened people and they're going to enlighten you with these steps. You're going to control the body, control the breath, control your postures, work in this model of getting rid of the body in a lot of ways, right?
Transcending it.
To be in this altered state, to be only spiritual body. And motherhood is fucking physical. It's mud, it's guts, it's spit, it's blood, it's everything that is nature, that is wild, that is untamed but perfect. It knows what it's doing.
Okay, it's so interesting what you're saying because I feel like it's both.
Yeah.
For birth, like I remember the whole prospect was personally for me overwhelming. And I had this sort of premonition that I was going to die during childbirth, right? This sort of like past life residue or just this fear. I just thought I was going to die.
Pregnant?
Before I even got pregnant, it was always, I thought like I'm going to die during childbirth, which is like, it's metaphorically true.
It is true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But for me, then having a sense of I'm going to do prenatal yoga, I am going to be prepared. I am going to try to make choices, whether or not I have control of those choices happening. I'm going to try to make a lot of conscious choices around this process. So I feel like it's both. It's like preparing and letting go, preparing, letting go.
Yeah, which is also, quite honestly, the practice of yoga in a lot of ways, to intentionally put the body in positions that it doesn't necessarily want to go into.
Sure, yeah.
And then also understand why it doesn't, listen to it, be curious about it, all those things too.
Why do you think yoga got involved in childbirth at all? Do we have a sense of when that started?
It depends on the culture you're looking at. In India, during the Brahmin era, that kind of encapsulates the modern yoga. It's a very caste system. It's very hierarchical and very misogynistic. So there were no access points for women in general, and especially if you were of a lower caste just by nature of how you were born. And then as it found its way to the West, the women who initially started to become interested in it were in the theosophical societies, and they were really engaged with the philosophies of these religions that were coming
Eastern
over.
influence.
The Eastern influence.
Sure.
And my take on it is that the women that started to learn from these teachers that brought yoga to the West were already past their birthing age. They were mostly women that were in their 50s, 60s, probably menopause already. And so they had the time and energy, they had the means, they had the funds. But I think you had women in the 70s, the late 60s, early 70s, who were already starting to blend into this natural hippie lifestyle. And you had a lot of guru worship starting in that era. A lot of people going off the grid, which also meant a lot of opportunity for people to just start to create their own little mission-based, microcosms. A lot of them we know now were predators and did terrible things to their communities, but the women were doing all the work of supporting these great thinkers, the men that were all the leaders, and they were having babies, and it just blended. So I think a lot of early prenatal yoga information that was written down in books were mostly women who were part of some kind of community like that. And they had a primary guru. Iyengar's daughter was
Gita.
Gita wrote one of the first books about yoga for women.
So were then some of these women just sort of doing yoga incidentally, and then they felt like, okay, maybe this is going to be helpful?
I think they just took their practice instantly into their pregnancy, and they were starting to attune to the idea of breaking from the traditional roles of birth at that point too. And that's where the blending of natural birth and yoga all kind of came together, because there were a lot of thought leaders at that time that were starting to encourage women to break away from the really intense version of medicalized birth that was happening at that time. So primarily a large use of the twilight sleep and, kind of forced hospitalizations, and not so much cesarean. Quite honestly, cesarean rates were very low at that point, but most women of my mother's generation were not conscious during the pushing phase. Like, they were conscious during a lot of their labor and left alone. And then they were given the twilight sleep drugs combinations, and mostly all episiotomy and forceps births. So it was kind of a building of information away from that trend, women teaching each other. I have an 80-year-old client who was in Air Force bases with her husband all over the country, and she was a young mother, and she was teaching the young women in these Air Force bases, basically becoming a doula herself, becoming a midwife in some ways, even though she wasn't medicalized. But she was supporting these women because they were using the doctor on the air base, which could have been a podiatrist, could have been a, it wasn't ever going to be an obstetrician.
Wow.
And movement is such a dynamic part of birth. Any big mammal is going to rest for a lot of their birth, and then once that baby is down in the pelvis and ready to come out, they're going to stand up and move around.
Yeah.
And so
there's a lot of lost knowledge. I feel like that was such a part, and there was such a hunger for information and reliable information, and not just something that...
It was a new generation of women who were going to college too. So a lot of these young women in the late 60s, early 70s were in college situations. And so they were continuing their education beyond what their mothers would have even thought to do. And so that's when kind of the natural birth world entered in, and they were already kind of steeped in that kind of, let's try yoga, let's try meditation, let's try the philosophies of vegetarianism. So, for example, like the community that started this place in Tennessee called The Farm, which is... Right now, it's known primarily as a natural birth community led by a group of women who basically trained themselves and then were trained in one specific area from a local doctor. But they were following a man who was going around the country to universities talking about vegetarianism and sustained agriculture, soybeans. They opened this farm and created the first soybean farm, soy milk and tofu. And he had like his wives. But one of his wives became the leader of kind of the natural birth movement in a lot of ways, Ina May Gaskin. And she's a primary voice in like my generation. Like she wrote a book about that time called Spiritual Midwifery. And so it was about a spiritualistic connection to the body in birth, the body in pregnancy, reclaiming breastfeeding from a society that had fundamentally eradicated it, eradicated women's choices whatsoever. And that was all happening at the same time as Roe v. Wade and feminist movements, etc.
So that kind of takes us into then, how do you feel like the way yoga poses are traditionally taught or performed, how does that have to change, if at all, for the prenatal or perinatal population?
I mean, it changes if people want it to. It's such a different. I can't answer that question with one answer, because fundamentally, my understanding when I started learning about yoga, I learned it first from a theater teacher, quite honestly, and then movements equal connection to self, connection to a listening to the self, an expression. And what you're learning from the teacher is fundamentally always going to be with the goal of having your own practice, that you won't need the teacher, that you will be your own guru. Yeah. And whatever that meant. And then to study it, when I started studying it at the Kriya Yoga Temple in the 90s, it was very much a lineage-based style with swamis, and they were all white people. Even Kriyananda, the guru of that temple, is a white guy, but he lived and breathed it. From what I know, he wasn't a predator. I don't know. I mean, there was a real commitment to the lifestyle of it, which I found really lovely. It was more philosophical. They really did do a lot more with the philosophies, and the practice, the hatha yoga itself was, the asana practice was just traditional poses. And then the Patabi Joy wave hit Chicago. And so, and now
never stopped hitting.
And never stopped hitting. And now we've got this very athletic form, this very gym-oriented, body-specific practice that lives fundamentally anywhere and everywhere now, which is not bad. It's not good. It's just, it is. So if you're pregnant, where were you practicing? How were you practicing? So when people meet me, they practice from my foundation, which for me also always was like, I have a body that's limited in a lot of different ways, that's had a lot of injuries. It has a lot of things that I thought society hated about my body, so I hated it, lots of growth with a relationship with my body. And moving into pregnancy and birthing was one of the rare times that I was welcoming of my full embodied experience. And so to pull that into the nature of the class as they enter is one of my strong intentions, is that you may still want to be going to the hot yoga studio down the block. I'm not your mom. I'm not,
right.
I would suggest you probably don't do that, because that kind of heat may be intense, but people live in hot places in the world and do movement, so I know fundamentally why certain things are not as useful. And I approach it that way. Things are probably more useful and less useful. And
it's such a learning curve. I remember walking into your studio pregnant and just determined that nothing would change in my body.
I get so excited. One of you. Because I'm like, oh, sweet pea, this is about ready to burst. And isn't that fundamentally what this practice is all about?
Yeah.
Is to love yourself anyway, because it's going to change every moment.
Gosh. And it's such a period in your life where it changes almost daily, and it never stops changing through parenthood.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so much change.
Yeah, and it's happening to all of us at a very specific age, like because of how the hormones work, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if we haven't gotten to some roots of ourselves by that age, which a lot of us don't.
Right.
I'm going to be 60 in a couple months. I'm like, yes, now oh, there I am.
Right.
And there's, that's such an interesting age because you're so creative. You're like at the peak of a lot of things.
Right.
Unless you're a very young parent.
Right.
Like my parents were, and which generationally too were pushing that needle. And I think it is because of the evolution of the unique person that's pregnant, that person that's pregnant is wanting to know more about themselves or has more opportunities to say, yeah, I can have some sex with you, but I'm not going to marry you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to make a person with you on purpose.
Right.
And hopefully we can still find that in a society. I mean, this is why our reproductive organs are being policed, is because the more of us with wombs that have control over our autonomy, the less this patriarchy works.
Right.
And it's not a pie. Obviously, there's that metaphor. It's like patriarchy sucks for all of us, man. Just like...
What do you mean it's not a pie?
It's not like if I have a slice, you have less. It's like, it's that whole idea of like, we're expanding the ingredients. We're not taking your ingredients away.
Right. It is interesting about the power dynamics and how that really shifts. It can shift through pregnancy, which can be, I think prenatal yoga can be such an incredible tool for empowerment in that way. Mm-hmm. And like, it's like, is that about control or not? It's just about autonomy. It's required that you both become autonomous and self-deciding, and you also have to then profoundly let go at the same time.
Yeah, you have to decide. I guess decision isn't the right word, but you have to encounter yourself over and over with generational historical storylines of mothering.
Ugh.
So which version of the mother can you be? Do you want to be? Is allowed?
Yeah.
And also then culturally over and over again, we block out these times that you're allowed to be enjoying it, and then you just better get the fuck on with it. Get back to work, start earning, get your body back, play either like the extreme, wearing a house dress, instantly ugly, give everything to my children, mother, or, pretend that I didn't have anything happen to my body.
Right.
And that I don't have scars, and that I don't have stretch marks, and that I don't lose my hair in clumps at month 3 of my baby's life, or that I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Or that all I want to do is this, but I can't. And if you're in a partnership, it's so complex. It's like the duality of just like, nobody knows how to do this.
Right. You're inventing the wheel in a sense, or you're just fashioning it, for yourself. And you've seen wheels and you know that they can look all sorts of different ways, but you still have to hew that like out of raw rock yourself. It's just such a process of becoming.
Yeah, and in the middle of it, there's this just nothing but vulnerable little being that can't do anything for themselves. So if you don't know, if you haven't gotten the support, if you don't know when you hit a limit or have gone into that dark place, or, just the dysregulation that happens. And, when you and I had our babies, that phrase didn't even fucking exist.
What regulation?
Dysregulation.
Dysregulation, right?
Knowing what my central nervous system volume is right now. And I'm like, oh my God. So there's also like a really rapid growth of language around autonomy and like knowledge of self and knowledge of central nervous system and variables of how we all are.
Gosh, good luck.
Good luck.
You're hanging on by your fingernails as your hormones plunge and ascend. That gets me to the power of the community, which I think like prenatal particularly I'm interested in what you have to think about it being in person versus virtual, as we all had to experience virtual only for so long. But what's the power of community in helping young people or new mothers start to navigate this space?
Well, I think it starts with the root of that word is you commune. You get into a sense of observance of others first and foremost with just your eyes. You see that you're not the only body that looks different. You're not the only body that has variables of size. So in my classes, people can come in and they may not even look pregnant because they're in their early weeks, and then people who are due any time now. And every body is different. Every body is different. You have someone that says, I'm 23 weeks, and they look like they could be delivering tomorrow. And you have someone that's, 41 weeks, which is kind of technically past their due date, and they carry real small, or they just so again, you kind of get all these variations that help you understand that you're not wrong.
It's not supposed to look one way.
Like if you, especially with online, everything is like, your baby's the size of a cucumber right now or whatever. It's like a weird shape. But, everything is like definitely still trying to keep us in this very rational, linear, male, frontal lobe dominated brain.
What to expect when you're expecting.
What the culture is doing. Yeah, it's like A to B to C. And then you have reciprocity. Right. When we hear each other's voices, prosody is the sound of someone's voice. And when you connect with their voice, even just you and I are sharing oxytocin. So we're going to cry more and we're going to have depth of a connection. And if one person says it's okay if I say it. And it's just gorgeous. It's the most beautiful thing. And I didn't intend it. I was just learning prenatal yoga because I was wanting to figure out how to be pregnant.
Yeah.
And a friend and I didn't know how to do it. And she'd done some doula training and I'd done some doula training, and doulas weren't even a thing in the 90s. And so then it was like, I want to figure out how to be pregnant. I want to learn about it. So she and I would get together and look at the 2 yoga for pregnancy books that were out there. And wow. Then we taught the first class we ever taught together because we were both so scared to teach a prenatal yoga class because neither of us had had a baby yet. And so when I got more comfortable, I was teaching some classes, and a woman came in just crying because she found out she was going to have a girl. And she had a terrible relationship with her mom.
Wow.
And they'd already kind of started to be friends after the class. I was just teaching them hatha yoga with some adapted stuff.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of like almost the entire gathering was them sharing. And I just sat there and I was just quiet. And then we moved our bodies, and then they got closer as a group. And it's like going through junior high again. You're just like, who am I? Am I wearing the right clothes? I mean, it's just like, are they judging me? So they become equals in their uncertainty and their lack of knowing how to do it. And I just sit there as kind of like you're okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. And I make jokes and I use swear words a lot. And I
right.
neutralize its enormity a lot of times. But I don't neutralize this. We cry all the time. And some of the most amazing things have happened because I teach pregnant people and new moms, new parents. I'm just like, what is this? I don't need to be a theater performer. This is the life of the life of mothers. We're too fucking busy to write our own novels, right? But the operas, the poetry, the fundamental just life force that comes out of those classes.
When you're talking, it's interesting because holding space is such a primary job of a yoga teacher. And it is, that part that you're describing makes everything it's what I love about what I do.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't work with prenatal population anymore, but just regular folks. I mean, because you're just holding space, you're witnessing, you're giving permission, you're normalizing, you're just abiding, you're just with someone in such a way that people deeply need.
Yeah. Midwife with woman, that's what it means. So it's German mit with something like that.
Now I got to go get the Kleenex, guys.
I know. I know.
I didn't think I would cry.
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate that at all. Total lunar eclipse.
It's the Jenny show.
Oh.
There's gotta be tears.
So question about language with pronouns and with assigning of gender and, who's expected to get pregnant and be pregnant, and how do you work around some of those language aspects to make it more of an inclusive experience?
I mean, I try to move with what I'm learning in real time, which is I have seen families of all configurations, however they express themselves. But, this has been a really rapid evolution of consciousness, and to change my language is easy. It's an easy thing. To be a fully formed, expressive person living, in a non-binary presentation or a gender variation that our culture doesn't love so much, then it's just like, that's hard. So yeah, I say pregnant people quite a lot. I say pregnant folk. I say women. I say mothers. I say parent. I say y'all. I say guys. Hey, you guys, because I'm from the Midwest. I'm trying to.
It's a hard habit to break.
No one's called me out on that one as being something that's challenged them, but I'm sure it's out there, and that's fine. I'm a grown up. I'd like to learn, and I also I don't think it's erasing people's identity to include.
Mm-hmm. Again, that kind of pie thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously the collection of people in a prenatal yoga class have wombs, and they have another human in their womb. And some people during their journey of pregnancy start to understand their gender definition for themselves. Again, it's just like, it's in this space that I've met my first trans person. It's in this space. It's in the space of people just want to have a family.
Yeah.
They just want to be human. So just get on with it. It's just like, so I flub up sometimes, and I may also want to really highlight the celebration of women and the work of women and the uniqueness of that. And so I do.
There's such a singular experience of becoming a mother for me, was that sort of like just knowing, having so much clarity. Whereas before, things were so tortured, and anything could be, well, it could be this and it could be that, but there's this way of knowing that I think yoga itself, and then within the context of being pregnant and doing yoga, can really help you attune with that. Like, again, giving permission to listen to that, to hear that, to know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Isn't it about the opportunity to be quiet enough to hear your own soul's voice?
There's a quiet, I mean, it's almost like it becomes the only thing. There's something about being pregnant. It just, it dominates. I mean, this identity shift is kind of forced upon you, and in a way, and not, no, I didn't have any negativity around that. I love the identity of mother. And it's, for me, that was something that has always felt really, really good, thankfully. But it was that it sort of rose up. Mm-hmm. It rose up, and it was, I guess everything else became quieter relatively. Mm-hmm. But I didn't feel like it was something that I needed to quiet all of that in order to sort of hunt for it. It was like bellowing in a way. I'm sure that everybody has different experiences with it, but I feel like prenatal yoga was such a refuge. Maybe that was the quieting. It was like you have to go to this space that's apart from everything else. And it's this weird space where like you're saying, this community, you're communing with people, they're all like you in this very singular experience. Maybe those are the conditions under which that can arise.
Well, I love all that. I think it gets you in that moment of not that this is all there is to being human.
Right.
But this is the beginning of all there is to being human. This is the only thing we've done that's the same right now that we can link with each other to. We've all been born. We've all been in a womb.
Yeah.
We've all been born and we're all going to die. And the rest of it is fucking made up. The rest of it is just creative. What the
filler?
Just whatever, isn't it? I mean, a lot of it is impulse. A lot of it is just like whatever other things do, plants, animals, everything to survive. There's systems already in place, and we connect deeply with that system. And maybe that's what you mean by like everything else gets burst to here, because that's just all a noise that isn't connected to a fundamental truth of like, this might be the first time any of us actually feel of nature.
Wow. Animal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just like purely, you don't have to think about the fact that that little kidney is growing. You don't have to think about, you have to probably nourish yourself differently to nourish. You have to understand maybe or not. You don't even have to know one thing about birth for it to happen, which is why ancient peoples have made up so many funny stories.
Tell me what you mean. Like what?
Oh, well, just like all the origin stories, any kind of creation story,
yes.
any kind of religious story came out of just like, what the fuck was that? And just like now we know. And so even just like the practice of yoga is so steeped in metaphor and symbology and, anthropologically connecting to those peoples that started to just write this poetry of the body in motion and the breath in motion relating to the environment they were living in. And
that makes me think about yoga and the purpose of yoga. And I think one of the things that drew me to yoga was that it was a system for handling suffering. And so I don't know if that applies. How does that apply to perinatal yoga?
Well, I mean, I guess suffering, again, is that word of how do you use it? What does it mean to you? How has it been presented to you? I mean, in a Christian methodology, we are sinners, right? We're born suffering. Women especially.
Yeah.
The reason we have pain is because of Eve, which is why I named my daughter Eve's, to fucking break that cycle, that story. And then there's the linking to the idea of pain and birth. It's like that pain is inevitable and suffering's an option. And that one's like thrown around a lot, like maybe the Buddha said it. But again, it's like I'm continuously trying to put down dogma that's coming at us that gives us this burden. It's like we have pain.
Yeah.
We have pain in a lot of different ways for a lot of different reasons, mental, emotional, physical. Suffering is when we feel alone in that pain. And when we feel unable to imagine a time without it. And we have to have intensities to build resiliency. That's how our brain got so big, right? It's a big mammal. We just really do have to have it. And so with yoga, sometimes we actively ask people to get to that edge, right? That was a big part of yoga at the time I was learning it. It's like, get to your edge and stay there and listen to it and befriend pain and all of that. And then it gets into, that's how a lot of the creeps got a hold of a lot of people. That's a really manipulative way of being coercively controlling of people, is to constantly make them step back from a moment where their central nervous system, where they're like, no, this is wrong.
Wow.
So I'm constantly wondering if suffering isn't just continuously handed to us as like if you don't suffer, you don't win or whatever. I want to help people not stay in suffering, but to be able to handle pain.
Yeah.
And so that's a strong place where I sit as a teacher of people that are pregnant, because they're going to have a baby. Whether or not they use pain medication, they're going to have pain.
Yeah, and fear.
And fear. And fear is a huge part of that pain. And so the continuation of allowing for sensations, allowing for understanding what sensations mean, connecting it to the body, learning about the body, knowing what a cervix is, knowing that sometimes that gets that fear out of the way. Sometimes it gives you more of a relationship to the experience as it happens. But I also want people to kind of understand, as I learned it too, that, and as I experienced it as I birthed my children, your body will just do it. Kind of like vomiting, kind of like shitting, just kind of like sneezing. It'll just do it.
Yeah.
And what you think about it is totally just the you of you. So if you have tools that help you, and maybe because you and I are such different creatures in that I'm like, whatever, the water's going to take me. And you're like, no, I would like to write everything down and have it in a line. And like, that's like, I'm like, let's go into this river. I don't know what's going to happen. And that's problematic for me because I have to get some linear stuff done sometimes in my life. And that's when I have suffering, is when I can't control the vastness of my wishy-washy into a line. And so everybody's different.
Right.
So if I offer something that's my dogma that helps me, it might not necessarily help you. And so again, even within these systems of like helping you find a tool, it's like this tool helped me, but you may find this tool. But really the tool might just show up because you used it organically, because you had to, because you were in an intense experience.
Right. It reminds me of
like the breath.
Right. And it is sort of like all of it is so quaint in the face of the magnitude of the experience of giving birth. And it is something that only you can do, but you need support and you need tools. But like, is anything up to this task? I mean, I think that's the fundamental edge, the yawning abyss that you encounter. And thank God that you only encounter it in that magnitude very, very rarely.
Yeah.
And that there's such a, hopefully, a blessing or a boon after it, right? Of the actual birth of your child that you're anticipating.
The rational brain is problematic, though, in all of this, in that.
Even on reflecting upon it?
No, not necessarily. Not at all. Because we use it to try to imagine something that isn't so scary. And I see that happen in real time too. Fear gets replaced with an excitement, with like, I'm looking forward to some, like, I would never sign up for the Chicago Marathon. Who the fuck would do that? But people really get excited about it.
Oh my gosh, my brother just ran the marathon. I love you, John. And he was like, oh, I think I know what it was like for you to give birth.
Yeah. I mean, so he thinks.
For his 4-hour experience?
Right, but he's probably thinking about
it's with the hardest physical journey that in some ways seems like and the way it made
he could stop running.
Right. But the exhilaration, I mean, the hormones, the release, the way his face looked and the way the experience changed him. Like I can see an echo.
There's a moment of survival. The second you're through it and you survive it, you like literally survive it, then you are euphoric. But there is something already created in our capacity to continue to exist. It's a big mammal. That's what I mean by the rational brain is problematic, because that's not the part of the system that reproduces.
This is like limbic, like way deeper, way more primal,
it's just like
primitive.
Anything endocrine system based. This is it has a design. It doesn't mean it's going to be fun. Doesn't mean you're going to look forward to it. Doesn't mean you're going to survive it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean
that
the
baby
offspring
will survive.
is going to survive it.
Right.
There's nothing about it, but it's designed well enough and safe enough that we're a pretty prolific big mammal.
Yeah, and going to menopause, not to jump so far ahead in life stage, but to see the way that nature discards my relevance and usefulness to society with all these visual tells to say she's no longer available to reproduce, and that society as a whole agrees that those things are unattractive sexually, for the very purpose of saying, it just keeps pointing to how fundamentally reproduction drives the whole game. I mean, not to be reductionist about it all, but it's like it's really been a profound process to start going through into menopause now, and to see and feel the loss of those reproductive hormones in me, and how expensive, metabolically expensive, how incredibly demanding of the body, the upkeep of like making this system available and working for so long, and the profound exhaustion when that is over. And also a newfound energy and rootedness and of like, oh my goodness, I'm liberated. I'm free from something I didn't even realize I was carrying. Agreed. But just, I've been stunned at the biological shift.
Yeah, it is stunning.
Yeah.
And again, it plants us in all these opportunities to know the self in change. And change is the only thing. And so
that kind of makes me think of the power of, like you were saying, mothers are too exhausted. All the brilliant things that we could do, the amazing ideas, the empires, the projects, there's just not enough. You're devoted, like it or not, to just raising this child.
However, some of the most important things in a society have been created from that place of mothering. Vessels to hold food, cooking sources, the agriculture. You know, you just think about the things that actually we just take for granted, textiles, to nurture, to make a society.
Right.
To create an actual social order, to take care of all of the things that take care. Now, from my understanding, we can see anthropologically that it was combined effort, but it was still pretty gendered in that, like, go find big beasts, kill the big beasts, and then just sit around most of the time out there eating and drinking, and then come back and look, all of a sudden this camp has been made, or this, things have been set up, roots have been found that make the medicine and feed the children. And again, it seems like magic to people who aren't curious about it, which is why the persecution of women for all of these things, the subjugation, the diminishing of our capacity. So when you say that, it's like, we just don't elevate those things. They just are like, oh, well, laissez-faire.
Right.
Oh, farms just happen. No, fucking no.
Children just raise themselves.
Kept the seeds.
Right.
Who kept the seeds? Who knew which plants? When we're sitting in that moment of like, you've been studying menopause enough too to know that Why are we one of the only big mammals still alive past our reproductive use? It's not just because we lucked out. It's because we created more opportunities for this big mammal to live. So we were needed.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting. I know so many teachers, prenatal yoga teachers, who don't have children. Yeah. And I know it, and then the power of the grandmother, the power of the menopausal woman, the power of the woman who has the time and the energy, the auntie, right, to help out.
Yeah, to find those roots and those medicines. And there's this great book, If Women Rose Rooted. So if we think about the nature of the reproductive primary mammal, it's like, it's not the seed. The seed is helpful, but it's a dime a dozen. We could choose, it's like there's so much more information now about what that fallopian tube is actually doing, what that ovary is actually doing. It's calculating which is the better sperm. It's not like focused on, oh, this is the strongest sperm. It got to the egg. No, the egg was like, fuck y'all. You're the one I want. It's just all these competitions of which is a better self and which is the stronger self and which has the stronger downward dog and which one can hold this pose for longer. That competitive nature of it all is really toxic. So this was a long answer to that question. If people come into my prenatal yoga classes, this is how I practice my yoga.